Second-ranked Kansas, fourth-ranked Kentucky. The SEC Big 12 Challenge. Coverage begins Saturday at 5:30 Eastern on ESPN and on ESPN Radio. Presented by O'Reilly Auto Parts.
What's up, First Take fam? Thank you so much for being with us on this Feel Good Friday. Guess what? We're going to Houston for Super Bowl 51. We want to see you there. So this is where we will be, downtown at Lucky's Pub, Wednesday, February 1st through Friday, February 3rd. We're going to have a ton of special guests, giveaways for you. Doors open 7:30 a.m., so come pack the house. We hope to meet you down there in Houston. We got a lot to get into today, starting with the NBA. Is LeBron damaging his reputation by publicly complaining about the Cavs roster? Plus, can the Patriots defense stop Julio Jones in the Super Bowl? And Mike McCarthy is calling the Packers season a success. But how should Aaron Rodgers feel about that? We get into all of it and so much more. Hey, you know what it is. First Take on a Feel Good Friday. I'm Molly Karam, holding things down here in Bristol, CT. Your boys are working on the road. Stephen A. and Max, there they are. How we feeling, fellas?
Whoa. Where are you, Max? Max got the crew cut looking with the Moses beard going on, the goatee and stuff like that. Where are you, Max? And why are you not in
You really like to study my look, don't you? I'm in sunny Palm Springs, California.
Why? What's up? Were you doing it? What are you doing it?
Well, Francisco Vargas, who is in the fight of the year like every year, is probably going to be in another one tomorrow night on HBO, and I'm here to cover it.
Well, all right. This is the one thing I do defer to you with when it comes to the boxing. I am the pupil. I'm the pupil. You are the professor. You're allowed to get one thing right in that regard, Max Kellerman.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
I defer.
Gentlemen, let's get into it, shall we? Last night on Inside the NBA, Hall of Famer Shaq and Charles Barkley were not on the same page when it comes to LeBron's latest comments directed toward Cavs brass on their roster not being suited to compete.
There is something fundamentally wrong.
Something fundamentally
with
wrong.
saying that you played for a team that had Big Four. You forgot about that? You, Akeem, Scotty.
First of all,
it doesn't matter.
That wasn't even close.
It doesn't matter.
No, it's not even close.
It doesn't matter.
We were all old men way past our prime.
It doesn't matter.
This guy just won the championship. He got a young Kyrie Irving and a terrific Kevin Love. And
but it takes more than that to win the championship.
They just won the championship. What do you mean it takes more?
Okay.
They just won the championship.
First of all, you know nothing about going back to back. I do and Kenny do. Listen, teams are coming at his head. They need more. They need a big shot Bob. They need a guy like Kenny Smith. They need a playmaker like LeBron said. It's only inappropriate because he went to the media. He should have went to Dan Gilbert and said, hey, I need help, boom, boom, boom. And they should have had a private conversation.
How good is that show? Max, are you on Team Shaq or Team Barkley here?
Love me some Charles Barkley, but Shaq is 100% right on this one. This ain't hard. When Charles Barkley says they just won, what are you talking about? They won a championship. And Shaq says, hey, when you go back to back, which he and Kenny Smith know about, they're coming for your head. He doesn't mean that just in metaphorically and everything. He's talking about stuff that actually happens. When you win a championship, the other teams in the league try to get better, try to counteract what you've done. So the Warriors, who are already great, 73-win team, defending champions, largely because LeBron's crew got hurt going into the previous finals, they went out and got Kevin Durant. That's what he means by coming for your head, not just that they're extra motivated, but the team that you had to struggle, come back down 3-1 on the road, final minutes, final possessions of Game 7. That team that you just beat in one of the all-time classic series by the skin of your teeth, just added Kevin Durant. What did you do? And it's not like LeBron is coming out saying, hey, we need Kevin Durant or someone like that. He's saying, can I have a backup point guard so I don't have to lead the league in minutes? By the way, LeBron's in his 14th season. He's on pace to lead the league in minutes per game. If he did that, he would be like no one else in their 14th season has ever led the league in minutes per game. LeBron would be the first. So not only if you want to win a championship in Cleveland, but if you want any longevity out of LeBron in that location and continued success, maybe they should listen to him. Shaq's 100% right. As I said yesterday, to quote Jay-Z, we don't believe you. You need more people. The Warriors got KD. What did the Cavs go out and do?
Max Kellerman, I disagree with you when you say that it's not difficult. It's easy to surmise that Shaq is right and Charles Barkley is wrong. I think it's very, very difficult because on one hand, I totally get where Shaq is coming from when he sits there and says you do need more people. No question about that. And he said that LeBron was wrong to go to the media. He's right about that. The flip side to it is that I didn't find much wrong about what Charles Barkley had to say. And I'm going to break it down to you this way, Max Kellerman. The Cleveland Cavaliers spent $54 million in luxury tax dollars last year. They're on pace right now to spend at least $27 million in luxury tax dollars. Now, obviously, when LeBron James talked about departing from Miami and coming back to Cleveland, he got a promise from Gilbert that there would be no limitations to spending whatever it took to field the team that he fielded. So far, Dan Gilbert is doing that. There's nothing wrong with LeBron James reminding him, albeit it should have been done privately as opposed through the media. Here's where Charles Barkley said something very, very profound without really elaborating on it. He sat up there and said that you're the champion. You're the greatest player in the world. How much stuff do you want? Stop whining, because that's when it harkens us back to the history of LeBron James and how we can't ignore it. You depart Cleveland and you go to join Bosh and D. Wade in Miami. You conveniently leave Miami at a time when Kyrie Irving is ready to ascend. Plus, you put it out there that you wanted Kevin Love, and everybody and their mother knew that Cleveland was going to get Kevin Love from the moment that LeBron James had decided to come to Cleveland. So it was a foregone conclusion that you were departing a big three for what essentially was perceived as another big three. You go to a finals where both of them are hurt, so you lose that finals. You lucked up when Draymond Green got suspended in last year's NBA finals, and you come back from 3-1 and you win that. Now they go out and get Kevin Durant. Certainly you have a point in saying, if you're LeBron James, that we need to get better. We need to respond to the challenge that stands before us in Golden State. But that's not what he's saying. What he's saying instead is that we haven't done enough. When in fact, you're the champion, the owner is spending money, and we get to look at you. Not only are you the best player in the world, you're the self-proclaimed best player in the world. It's one thing for Max Kellerman, myself, and others to say it. LeBron James was on a record a couple of finals ago, looking everybody in the camera and said, because I'm the best player in the world. Plain and simple. There's no doubt about it. There's nobody better than me. So when you are on the record saying that, even though we agree with you, when you are on the record saying that, that gives credence to the argument that Barkley is coming up with. Then what the hell you chirping for? Shut the hell up, go out there and get it done.
No.
Go ahead.
No, it gives credence to LeBron and now Shaq's argument that LeBron's not out there saying, yo, go get me Chris Paul. He's saying, get me a backup point guard, precisely because of the reason that you point out. Because LeBron James knows, in the end, history's not going to want to know whether or not he had a backup point guard. They're going to look and say, you had Kyrie Irving, Kevin Love, and a good team even around that, and you couldn't get it done. You lost 2 out of 3 to Golden State. He knows that's what the broad view is going to be. So that he gives himself the best chance to win, he's saying, I need to worry about the details. Because the details matter, not to history, but in order for me to make history. I need a backup point guard. That's all I'm asking for. It's not too much.
Yeah, but I think you're missing my point. I'm not saying that LeBron James is wrong for highlighting what he needs. I'm saying the manner in which he handled it is what Charles Barkley and them are attacking. It's not like they're sitting there and saying you don't need a backup point guard. Don't get him anybody. Stand there alone and handle your business with what you have. That's the way that it goes. That's not what's being said here. What's being said here, you sitting up there and you talking to the media. You've publicized the acrimony that exists within the organization. You've done X, Y, and Z.
Let me ask you something, Stephen
A. Hold on. And why are you doing that for a backup point guard when we literally have about 3+ weeks before the trading deadline, and LeBron James has been in this league long enough to know that usually right before the trading deadline is when things get done. The fact that you're sitting up there and saying something in the month of January, it's not just about the personnel, Max. There seems to be something else there that you're pushing out front and center, and now it's come back to bite him because it's left us all looking at LeBron James and saying, okay, what about you?
Okay, now let me ask you something. It's not a rhetorical question. It's a genuine question.
Sure.
The way I interpret it is that LeBron James has had these discussions in private. does not have confidence that something's going to get done and says, okay, I have to apply public pressure to get this done. You hear all kinds of things. I'm not asking you to report on it one way or another, but have you heard that?
Yes, I have heard that, but here's the problem with it, Max Kellerman. They have a history of getting things done because they're standing here as the reigning defending champions. Not only that, LeBron James was on a record saying they did the job. Not only that, once he said what he said publicly, he backtracked by saying, I think they've done a good job. It's just that I don't want us to get complacent. So if your only concern was complacency, how do you justify that when they just acquired Kyle Korver? And how do you justify that when they have almost a month before the trading deadline expires? That's the kind of stuff that gives credence to the Charles Barkleys and the Kenny Smiths of the world who spoke up about it, because they're saying, wait a minute, where is this coming from? Because you're the champions and you have weeks coming up. Sure, go ahead. I'm listening.
I have a theory on that. J.R. Smith goes down. The team goes out and gets a three-point specialist. LeBron at that point looks and goes, if I'm LeBron, I look and I go, yeah, J.R. Smith is important. By the way, actually on perimeter defense, too, amazingly, in the last couple of years. But J.R. Smith is important, but we have guys who collectively can cover for what he does. We don't necessarily need a Kyle Korver. In terms of the priorities of what we need. You can use Kyle Korver, of course. What we need is a backup point guard. And they didn't go out and get it. So LeBron, who also acts as the GM of that team, let's be honest, he wasn't going to come to Cleveland unless, you know, they get to pick Andrew Wiggins and he goes, oh, you can flip that into Kevin Love? Okay. I know it happened after the fact, but I'm sure conversations were had. You get Kevin Love with Kyrie Irving, I'll be in Cleveland. LeBron is also acting essentially as the GM of the team. And what the GM is saying, who knows better what he's looking at than anyone in basketball, he's saying, I need a backup point guard. You got to make this happen. And if he's not getting satisfaction in terms of what he's hearing privately, okay, I got to bring this to the court of public opinion. Put some pressure on you.
Yeah, you can put some pressure on them, but what I'm saying to you is that you put pressure on people when they haven't got it done. But when they've got it done and you're on record saying they got it done, what are you chirping for when the trading deadline is almost a month away? That's the whole point in all of this. And so when you have a Dan Gilbert or you have a David Griffin, for example, more so David Griffin because he's really caught in the middle because it's really about the friction that exists between LeBron James and Dan Gilbert, what you're sitting there saying is, wait a minute, we're making phone calls every day. You've been a veteran in this league for 13 plus years. You know good and damn well that just makes my job harder if you're going out there and chirping because other guys are going to sit up there and hold out because they're going to look at you bringing pressure to bear, and it's going to make it that much more difficult for us to make a move.
Stephen A., that's the point. That's the point which Barkley didn't bring up, is if you want to criticize LeBron for making it public, it's that you're undermining the leverage that the GM has to make a better deal. And when you are capped out the way Cleveland is and you don't have a ton of assets that you can move for something like that because you're so top-heavy, you really don't need your superstar undermining the leverage of the assets you do have because now everyone in the league knows he's demanding that you make a trade for a backup point guard. That's a valid point, not one that Charles Barkley made.
Stephen A., I want to take the conversation one step further here. How much damage has LeBron done complaining publicly to his reputation?
Well, I think that it's damage that can be alleviated if he goes out there and win again. Let's face reality. Winning solves it, Molly. But the flip side to it is that I do believe that some damage has been done to him in this respect. You seem to want to have everything laid out for you before you win a championship, which every player wants, but you've publicized it more than most people. LeBron James right now has us thinking about how he departed Cleveland for Miami, has us thinking about how he departed Miami to go back to Cleveland, has us thinking about, where's he going to go from here if he elects not to end his career in Cleveland. He has us thinking about Kevin Durant leaving for Golden State. He has us thinking about stars trying to assemble with one another and how the league felt the need to try to impede that to the best of their ability with these latest collective bargaining negotiations, because the element of competition, I'm at my best. I'm the man. Who's the competition? Instead of looking forward to going up against cats, you've basically proven that you're responsible for creating a culture where competition is dissipated and diminished because dudes who are rough riders and first tier stars want to join forces with one another instead of of competing against one another. LeBron James at this particular moment has us thinking that he's the ringleader for all of that, instead of us thinking about Kevin Durant electing to go to Golden State on his own. Now we're thinking he went there because of what LeBron did and how he made it okay for everybody else to do it. Those kind of things can assist in sort of damaging a reputation, but it can be alleviated if you win, but it's a death knell if you lose.
I don't think he's done any damage at all to his reputation. Look, there's one way of looking at LeBron, which some people do, that he is anti-competitive somehow because he didn't just wait for the GM to do it, right? But Magic Johnson is born into a league where he joins a team with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and they eventually draft James Worthy. Michael Jordan gets Scottie Pippen and one of the great coaches of all time, and eventually, and then Horace Grant, and then eventually Dennis Rodman in the second iteration of that run. Larry Bird gets Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish and Bill Walton off the bench, not to mention Dennis Johnson, a finals MVP, Danny Ainge, a three-point specialist, all those things. Those championship teams happened for those guys. They didn't have to play GM. And LeBron James, who obviously is a student of history, says, okay, do I want to be known as Charles Barkley or Karl Malone or John Stockton or someone like that who, wow, he was great. He didn't win a championship, but she sure did tough it out. Amazing, because Cleveland was not getting it done, did not make the trade for Amari Stoudemire when LeBron wanted him to, etc. Does he want to be one of those guys, or is he going to take matters into his own hands, empower himself, and create a legacy of, okay, you're not going to do it for me, I will do for myself, which he's done. He's now a three-time champion. I think LeBron James' legacy ultimately won't be anti-competitive in the sense that he's joining up with other superstars because his team can't get it done for him, the general management and ownership. I think his legacy is going to be empowering labor. He's empowered players in a way they've never been empowered before.
All right, but here's the part that I think you're missing. The points that you brought up would have been valid if he never captured a championship. The fact that you're sitting here as a three-time champion, but you still find yourself headlining a story like this is not a good look. Not to mention the fact that, again, I never had a problem. Me have a problem with LeBron James leaving for South Beach. Are you kidding me? I'm mad that he left South Beach and went back to Cleveland. Okay, so I certainly never had a problem.
That's because you want to go to South Beach. I
certainly never had a problem with him departing from Cleveland because I also understand that there was some personal issues that affected his decision initially as well, and we can't ignore that. But the flip side to it, again, is I'm not faulting him for anything, but you have to, as you use the word optics on many, many occasions. The optics in this particular equation looks bad because you're the reigning defending NBA champion, because it was assisted by an ownership that lived up to their promise to you to go out there and spend money. Now, certainly there's a $9 million trade exception that they could have used along with other things, and there's no doubt about that. But the flip side is they have a history, a recent history of doing what you've asked, and there's still time to address the concern. So you being a three-time champion, you being a reigning defending NBA champion right now, and still feeling the need to complain when they can turn around and say, okay, look what we've done. We actually did keep our word to you. It seems like LeBron James is almost hitting the panic button because you're scared you're going to lose to Golden State. And I think that's the thing that's going on.
And he should be scared. Look at that Golden State team. LeBron is very smart. He knows they're up against it. And in terms of the lasting impact to his reputation, or even temporary impact, okay, there's a month to go, you keep saying, before the trade deadline. There are weeks to go before the trade deadline. He doesn't need to overreact now. Well, if in fact they get it done and they get him a backup point guard again, he's not asking for Russell Westbrook here. He's asking for a Dellavedova type. That's not seen as a big deal. It's seen as a reasonable request, I think, by most reasonable people. If they get it, and people will forget all about this, win or lose in the finals. They'll forget all about the fact that he asked for a backup point guard. And if he doesn't get it and they lose, they'll say, aha, LeBron was right. They needed a backup point guard. I don't see where this damages him. He has set an example for other players. Your fate is largely in your own hands. There are rules that keep you in certain place, on a certain team where you have very little say in the matter. But if you can last long enough in the league where you acquire your free agent rights, you can take your destiny into your own hands. You have the players have more power even than they realize, and LeBron is leading by example.
Well, here's where Max is absolutely right. At the end of the day, Max, what you're saying is that LeBron James is not just a basketball player, he's a businessman. And a lot of these guys are businessmen. They're not ageless veterans, sticking around, indebted to an organization who are, dependent on them showing gratitude for their years of service. They ain't trying to be those dudes. They're trying to be business partners. They're trying to be businessmen. LeBron James certainly has facilitated that and deserves a lot of credit for it. But when you're in the throes of competing for a championship and you're the reigning defending NBA champion, it is just not a good look for you to be sitting there talking about what you don't have when there's still time for you to get it and defend your crown. It's a bit premature on his part, and I think he mishandled it.
I can't wait for this. It's a Williams sister dream match at the Australian Open. Venus takes on Serena Saturday at 3 Eastern on ESPN with a special encore presentation of the match Sunday at 9 a.m. on ESPN2. It can also be seen streaming live on the ESPN app and Watch ESPN. And we're headed on the road to Super Bowl 51. We're going to be live in Houston next Wednesday through Friday, February 1st through 3rd. We're at Lucky's Pub downtown on St. Emmanuel Street. We're going to have a ton of special guests like Brandon Marshall, Rob Gronkowski, T-Sizzle, many more. Doors open 7:30 a.m. local. Show starts at 9 a.m. local. Pack the house. We want to see you guys down in H-Town. Speaking of that game, Falcons offensive coordinator Kyle Shanahan was asked about some of the criticism the Patriots have received despite boasting the league's top-scoring defense this season, giving up only 15.6 points per game.
It's the best defense that we've seen in the NFL this year. The numbers show it, and watch the film and you see exactly why their numbers the way they are. They are extremely tough to score against. That's why they're number one in the NFL. I believe only one game this year someone scored 30 points. They have very good players all around, players that are interchangeable, that can be pass rushers, that can be linebackers, that can be corners, that can be safeties, and they have an extremely good scheme. So it's by far the biggest challenge we've had this year.
And look who's here to weigh in on this subject. We welcome Donovan McNabb to the show. Donovan, how we doing?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Good. It's good to see you. But I'm actually going to start with Max on this one. Max, do you think the Patriots' D is as good as Shanahan says?
Yes, especially right now. It's not just he brought up the kind of versatile type of players they have and flexible schemes. I mean, one of the difficulties in playing the Patriots is who do you prepare for, offensively and defensively? Who do you prepare for? They're a different team week to week because they're preparing for you. They're adapting to what you do and taking stuff away that you do. Difficult to anticipate precisely who they'll be, or at least look at film and game film and say, okay, we're playing that team. No, that's going to be a new team. That's part of it. And part of it's talent, sure, and the coaches putting them in the right position. But a big part of it's also they're healthy. The Patriots defense, when you look at it, is a mostly healthy defense right now. And this time of year, so it's not just they've been good all season, it's that they've won the war of attrition with the season compared to other teams. One of the reasons, one of the many reasons, they're in the Super Bowl. They're a healthy defense right now. Show me a healthy defense this time of year, and I'll show you a good one. And in addition to that, they're a good one. I think Shanahan's right.
Well, listen, the Patriots.
Let me add it.
Go ahead, Donovan. Go ahead, Donovan. Go ahead.
The thing about it, you're absolutely right, is they're healthy. But the most important thing about this football team is they're a sound defense. They're bend but don't break, and that's what has made them successful over the years, going back to all the way when Teddy Bruschi was a linebacker for them. When you're playing against this defense, you have to play mistake-free football. That means up front you have to block your guys and keep a body on a body. And for running backs, continue to protect the football, get as many yards as you can. And in the passing game, take what the defense gives you. A lot of times quarterbacks that play against this particular defense, they try to take shots. We go back to the Ben Roethlisberger game where he tried to throw the ball downfield to Hayward Bay, end up being behind him for an interception, tip balls, things of that nature when he played against the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoff game. Alex Smith and Travis Kelce did not connect on about two or three passes there, and which led them to punting the football or kicking field goals. Against this particular defense, what Kyle Shanahan is talking about is when you play against this defense, you have to be at the right place at the right time and be able to make the play that's there to be made. So what he's saying is absolutely right. But for me being a quarterback, I look at Matt Ryan and I say, Matt Ryan, you've been playing flawless football over the last 9 weeks. Everything that we've seen from you has been the MVP type calendar. Don't try to change things just because you're in a Super Bowl by trying to take shots downfield. If you have Sanu that's open at 6 yards, take them. If your running backs, Freeman, and also for Coleman, if they're in the flat, take them. Don't try to hold the football to create a bigger play than what's really there, because methodically you have to move the football downfield, and that's when teams have been successful versus this defense.
Well, see, for me, it all comes down to this. I mean, I think Julio Jones is the kind of guy that's going to get his. I'm not sure about Gabriel or Mohamed Sanu, even though they can make some noise. The key to me is Coleman and Devontae Freeman. I mean, what they can bring to the table, catching passes out of the backfield. Do the New England Patriots have linebackers or safeties that can cover these guys? I think that's a huge question mark, and I think that's the kind of thing that you have to monitor, because the beauty of Sanu with Julio Jones and Gabriel is that you're going to have to defend these guys. You can't take any of them for granted. So that's going to really open things up for those backs out of the backfield to catch some short passes, some screens and things of that nature. Plus, it's going to take some of the pressure off of Matt Ryan, who's not going to have to drop back and pass ad nauseum to subject himself to some hits that the Patriots are fully capable of providing against them. So I think you monitor it and you respect New England's defense in that regard. But the question is, have we really seen New England tested this season to this degree? The answer would happen to be no. The two best quarterbacks they've gone against thus far is Tyrod Taylor and Russell Wilson this season. They really haven't gone against much else. When they played against Pittsburgh, even though they destroyed Pittsburgh in the AFC Championship game, during the regular season, they had to go against Landry Jones. And so as a result, they didn't really get tested during the regular season. They're going to get tested in the Super Bowl. It's going to be something new to them, unless you take into account the experience of Bill Belichick, which obviously goes a long way.
You know, Donovan, I want to respond to what you said. I totally agree with that about the Patriots. I would describe it as a quicksand defense. The more you struggle, the quicker you sink. And what highlights that and the way they take advantage of that is their offense is the opposite. This is Tom Brady's greatness as much as anything else. If it's not there, throw it away. I mean, not only does he get rid of the ball quickly, but he'll get rid of the ball quickly just to throw it away. They never force anything. So while they're just playing the odds constantly, the other team starts to feel desperate and struggles faster and sinks quicker.
Right. And to add to your point, you know, one question that a lot of people have raised about the New England Patriots is, why were they so successful versus the Pittsburgh Steelers? Because they played zone defense. If you play man defense versus the New England Patriots minus Gronkowski, you have a better opportunity to jam the wide receivers, throw off the timing of the passing game, and possibly bring more than they can handle in the blitz. Now, it's the direct opposite versus with the Atlanta Falcons. You do not want to play them man-to-man, because who are you going to put man-to-man on Julio Jones? You want to put Malcolm Butler with no safety over the top against Julio Jones? I really would not do that, because it wouldn't go in your favor. So what they're going to do is they're going to play a little bit of zone. They're going to have a safety over the top of Malcolm Butler. They're going to have Ryan on Sanu.
Hold on that, because we want to get into that and share some sound on that Julio Jones subject that you just brought up. And I know, Stephen A., you had praised him on your final take for him staying out of the headlines for the wrong reasons, but he definitely made a case for best wide receiver in the NFL in the NFC Championship game, and he's not concerned about going up against the Patriots defense, who is #1 in points allowed. Here he is.
They mix up a lot of things, who they're going to take away and what they're going to do in the game. So we don't know what they're going to do, but we got to be prepared for any and everything they throw at us. You know, team's been double covering me, you know, throughout the year. Over the years, actually. So for me, it's just a normal game to me. I'm preparing. I'm going to get ready, you know, like any other week. And just go out there and, you know, and we're going to go out there and ball.
All right, so we all know Malcolm Butler's made big plays in Super Bowls before. Donovan, we'll come back to you now. Can New England stop Julio?
Yeah, well, they can't stop him. They can neutralize him a little bit. And I say this because, you know, you go back to the Super Bowl in which they won against the Seattle Seahawks. What they did was they'll double team when you have a top corner, which I'm not going to put Butler in the category of a Darrelle Revis. But if you have a top corner, you can double team the #2 receiver, that being Sanu, by having a safety over the top. Then you take away the #1 receiver by having someone underneath, and then also your top corner being over the top. So for me, when I look at this matchup, I know that we love what Julio Jones been able to do, and I'm a big fan of Julio Jones. Can you take away Julio Jones throughout the whole game? Absolutely not. He's going to come out of the game with 6 or 7 catches, something that we didn't see with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So now who's going to be elevated in the offense? that's going to be Freeman and Coleman, because the matchup versus the safeties and the linebackers work in the favor of the Atlanta Falcons because of what they like to do. They like to move Matt Ryan outside the pocket a little bit and get the receivers going downfield. So now underneath, you're looking at the running backs and the tight ends to be a security blanket for Matt Ryan. And if you try to take that away, that's when they go over the top for 18 to 25-yard reception from Julio Jones and also Sanu.
Well, let's pay attention to something. There can only be 11 dudes on the field at the same time. And when you know, at some point in time, Cat's going to have to man up. And the question is, do you have the confidence that they can pull that off? When I think about Julio Jones and what he said, I love his attitude, because here's the deal. He's big time. He's your number one primary receiver. And what he's saying is, this is nothing new. What I'm going to go through on Super Bowl Sunday is what I go through every day. So it's really not a question about what Julio Jones can do or what Julio Jones is going to do if the opportunity presents itself. The question is, are the other dudes going to step up? And when you think about the other dudes stepping up, because this stage is so big, could it potentially be too big for them? That remains to be seen. Here's what we know about New England. Let me just give you the personnel, just some of the personnel in their secondary. Hightower, has he been there before? Yep. How about Malcolm Butler? Yep. How about Logan Ryan? Maybe not so much. But what about Devin McCourty? What about Patrick Chung? Yeah. When you look at guys like that, these are names that are familiar. These are names that have been here before. These are names that know what it takes to get it done. And so when I think about it from that perspective, it just comes down to that for me. It's an experience issue against an inexperienced but very talented issue. And whatever way you want to go with it, you just have to pay attention to the personnel that New England has, which is why it makes sense, Max, while Kyle Shanahan said the things that he said, because you got to worry about these boys' experience coming to shine through.
The question is, can you stop Julio Jones, basically? And, you know, what's the cliche? You can't stop him, and the people don't use it as much anymore. You can only hope to contain him, right? Put a safety over the top, whatever. Donovan, like, you need to devote extra resources to Julio Jones, or he will kill you. And then it comes down to, can the other guys get open, right? Especially if there's extra attention on Julio Jones. To tell you the truth, the success of the Falcons' offense, to me, is a lot about the fact that they have athletes who can beat their man one-on-one. They can get open. So you got guys open all over the field, and Matt Ryan recognizes that quickly, gets the ball to them quickly and on their steps. Now, if the question is, can you take away the number one thing they do? Yes, Bill Belichick, you can't stop him again, but Bill Belichick can scheme in a way, and they have players that Stephen A. just pointed out in a way, but with the experience and the talent, where you can make Julio Jones, you can diminish him. He can be something, the Patriots will turn him into something possibly less than his best self. But in order to do that, they are going to leave an offense that is used to beating their man to man, used to getting open. You're going to give them an even better chance to do it. And so Sanu and Gabriel, and you mentioned Freeman, obviously, and Coleman, who are already athletic and good and able to do that sort of thing, will now be able to do it a little bit more on the biggest stage. And then it comes down to, you know, can they hold on to the ball? And based on what I've seen this season, I think the answer is yes there, too.
You know what, let me add to that as well, Max. You know, one thing about Bill Belichick is he won't allow your top guy to beat you. And I say that because he's not worried about if Julio Jones comes out of the game with 6 to 8 or 10 catches in the game, but it makes sure he eliminates those explosive plays. Those plays that we see versus the Green Bay Packers, catching an 18-yard route and taking it for about 45 yards, and then also going over the top of the defensive back and catching that back shoulder throw in the end zone. Those are things that he will eliminate playing against this Atlanta Falcons defense. Yeah, you can catch a 6-yard route. You can catch a 12-yard route and run out of bounds. That's not something Bill Belichick is worried about. But what he is doing, he's putting you in a position to make Sanu, make Gabriel, make Devontae Freeman and also Coleman. Make those guys win the game for you. And then that means if Matt Ryan forces the ball to a guy like Julio Jones, that works in the favor of the New England Patriots, and that's working into the hands of Bill Belichick. He plays a chess game with a lot of these different coaches, the offensive coordinator, the head coaches. If you go back to that Super Bowl against the Seattle Seahawks, what he did to Pete Carroll by just staring at him because Pete thought he was going to call a timeout toward the end of the game in the red zone, and he allowed him to score. If you're going to score, score. If not, then we get the ball back and we win. And what happened? He sat there, played the chess game, Malcolm Butler with the interception. New England wins the Super Bowl.
And you know what that tells me too, Donovan? That the coaching philosophy and the quarterback have to have faith in their second and third and fourth options. Because I think about the second Giants Super Bowl victory against the Patriots, and, you know, on the Super Bowl video later, which is a Giants fan, of course, I ran out and got, you can hear Belichick saying, don't let Cruz beat you. Make Manningham beat you. He actually said that.
Right.
And sure enough, Eli Manning and Tom Coughlin had faith, had confidence in Manningham, and it won them the Super Bowl. So it may come down to the same sort of thing. Matt Ryan believing that Gabriel can beat them and getting him the ball.
I don't think there's a maybe about it. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I think Julio Jones is going to get his. I don't think he's going to have a monster game, but I think he's going to have a big enough game where you're going to know that he's a threat because, again, he can just make plays and he can make things happen. But I think ultimately it's going to come down to one of those situations where even though Coleman and Freeman may be keys coming out of the backfield, just like I said, you know, you've got a situation where Bill Belichick may be able to key on them too while he's keying on Julio Jones. That's going to make Mohamed Sanu and or Gabriel key components in all of this based on what y'all saying, whether it's a Mario Manningham, whether it's a Plexico Burris catching the winning touchdown, whatever the case may be. Julio Jones is going to have his moments, but somebody else is going to have to step up to deliver the goods for Atlanta.
13 Falcons players have scored TDs this year, but if anybody can stop a number one guy, we know that's Bill Belichick, so it'll certainly be interesting to see how it all plays out. But speaking of big-time receivers, when First Take returns, Dez Bryant has said some wild things before, but now he's saying his squad is the only team that could have beaten the Falcons this year. How ridiculous of a statement is this? Plus, staying on the subject of those Falcons, they demolished the Green Bay Packers in the NFC Championship, but their coach isn't feeling too bad about the loss. Take a listen. We'll react to that after the break.
I would say our team clearly had a successful season, without a doubt. I don't even know why we even question that. We had a successful season, but we did not reach the ultimate goal of winning the Super Bowl.
Deep three, got it! Steph Curry about 35 feet from the hole!
NBA Saturday primetime on ESPN Radio. It's a showdown between two of the NBA's best.
Filthy jam by
DeAndre Jordan leads Lob City into Oakland.
Thompson for three. He buries the triple.
To face Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, and Golden State. Coverage begins Saturday at 7:30 Eastern on ABC and on ESPN Radio.
Our NBA Friday matchup on ESPN has the leading MVP candidate James Harden and the Rockets in Philly to take on the Sixers. Our coverage tips with NBA Countdown 7 Eastern. Michelle Beadle and the crew also streaming live on the ESPN app and watch ESPN. And then tonight at 10:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN, the X Games continue for the 16th straight year from Aspen, Colorado. We'll have the men's finals from ski, superpipe, and snowboard big air. The X Games also available on the apps. Meanwhile, the Packers were 4-6 before going on an 8-game win streak and ultimately getting embarrassed in the NFC Championship game in Atlanta. But keep in mind, Green Bay was decimated by injuries. However, their coach, Mike McCarthy, is looking at the bright side, saying their season was still a success.
I would say our team clearly had a successful season, without a doubt. I don't even know why we're even questioning that. I don't think, I don't look at this business as far as a black or white, but I mean, everybody wants the ultimate goal what Atlanta and New England's playing for. So, and with that, and fully recognize that when you don't reach that goal, there comes criticism and opinions, which we fully accept and understand. It's part of our industries. But we had a successful season, but we did not reach the ultimate goal of winning the Super Bowl.
Our quarterback, Donovan McNabb, is still with us. Max, going to start with you here, though. How should Aaron Rodgers feel about this?
Is this a trick question? He should feel great about it. I mean, from 4-6 to 1 game away from the Super Bowl with an undermanned roster, particularly in the secondary, and then a very injured roster. You think about this season, how far did they get? Okay, 1 game away from the big game. That, only a couple teams, 4 teams exactly, 3 teams, well, 2 you could argue, are happier than the Green Bay Packers right now. And then the question is, what kind of season did they have historically? Like, how will we remember this? to tell you the truth, so far, unless Tom Brady wins the Super Bowl and they hand him the, and Goodell has to hand him the trophy, that we'll remember. But so far this season, the thing we will remember of all the games played is Aaron Rodgers' miracle comeback against the Cowboys. The way he won that game. That's what we're going to remember. We're going to remember the 4-6 start, the run the table talk, the making good on that promise. And I, as a Giants fan, will remember that defense playing incredibly well against the Packers, only to be demoralized by Aaron Rodgers, and then that incredible game against the Cowboys. So, like, you get one game away from the Super Bowl, and you do the stuff that everyone will remember with an undermanned squad that's injured. Yeah, that's a successful season. Of course it is. Aaron Rodgers should take it as a compliment.
Go ahead, Donovan.
Well, for Aaron Rodgers, their quarterback, I think first and foremost, he's going to go into the thought process of we dropped the ball in the NFC Championship. We had a great opportunity. We were rolling. Everything was working in our favor. Our defense was playing pretty well enough to at least win the football game. But offensively, we didn't do what we needed to do against the Atlanta Falcons. He's not going to reflect back on the season of the winning streak in which they had and how hot he was playing at that particular time. He's going to go to the fact that they lost in the NFC Championship and they should have been in the Super Bowl. Now, as far as McCarthy is concerned, he's absolutely right, because in the beginning we were talking about him possibly losing his job, and then we were trying to figure out what's wrong with Aaron Rodgers. People were going to the personal aspect of things. We were talking about he was kind of off timing with their passing game. They're not running the football. They're putting Montgomery at the running back position because Eddie Lacy can't seem to keep his weight down. But then when you look at the grand scheme of things from an outside standpoint, or from a fan standpoint, yeah, you're going to say they had a successful season because they were depleted in the secondary. Their defense was not the same. Clay Matthews is not the same player. Julius Peppers is getting a little older. So from a defensive standpoint, if you're a Green Bay fan, you're going to say we need to work on getting our defense better. But from an overall standpoint, yes, we did play a lot better and better than expected. We beat the Cowboys, yeah, because we have Aaron Rodgers. That is a luxury that McCarthy understands he has, and he does not want that to go anywhere because it's going to keep his job. When you have Aaron Rodgers, you have a great chance of winning. But from a personal standpoint, from a quarterback standpoint and his mentality, he's not reflecting on the season. He's talking about why they lost that Atlanta game, and he's going to be sick watching that Super Bowl and seeing Atlanta represent the NFC.
I think both of you are being short-sighted here. And the reason I say that is because y'all are looking at it from a micro perspective instead of a macro perspective. From a micro perspective, you've just been in your second NFC Championship game in 3 years. You're looking at the fact that you lost to the Atlanta Falcons. That's where you've been. From a macro perspective, you're saying we have arguably the greatest quarterback, I believe the greatest quarterback talent-wise in history in Aaron Rodgers. We got to a Super Bowl in 2010. We haven't been back since. Who's responsible for that? That's where it gets a little bit tricky, because on one hand, you want to give Mike McCarthy credit, but sometimes you look at the play calling. Sometimes you look at his willingness to give up offensive play calling responsibilities before taking it back this season. You're wondering from a big picture what's going on here. Ultimately, you lean on Ted Thompson because here he is, the general manager. And as you pointed out, Donovan McNabb, there's been some questions in terms of their personnel. Certainly injuries have something to do with it, but on another level, there are personnel decisions that could have been better on the part of your general manager. Not so when it comes to Mike McCarthy. That's not his responsibility. And so when you look at it from that perspective, even though Mike McCarthy doesn't deserve to be gone, he doesn't deserve to be fired, it certainly doesn't deserve to be viewed as failing or anything like that. You do get to a point where you look at the greatness of a quality guy like Aaron Rodgers and ask yourself the question, are we maximizing the opportunity that we have by having this man behind center? That means personnel. That means coaching. That means executives, as in general managers, putting the requisite pieces necessary surrounding that individual. Mike McCarthy is right. They haven't failed, but at the same time, the Green Bay Packers have left you scratching your head at times, wondering, are the right pieces around Aaron Rodgers where we can legitimately say we're maximizing this opportunity?
And then even if they are, they have to be healthy. What I said earlier in the show about the Patriots defense, part of the reason they're so excellent right now is they're mostly healthy. Green Bay not only had a bad secondary, but then they had a hurt secondary. all of their receivers were hurt, whether some of them were playing or not. They were all hurt and diminished, even the ones who managed to get on the field. And let's not forget, in that NFC Championship game on the road against maybe an historically great offense, we'll find out in the Super Bowl, the Atlanta Falcons, where, in an indoor place where they, on a fast track with a fast team, where they were favored over Green Bay. Let's not forget, missed field goal fumble in the red zone, receivers consistently dropping passes, or else maybe even then it's a different game. So Aaron Rodgers' greatness elevated this team that really had no business there in the first place. Again, 4-6 at one point, runs the table, goes on the road against that offense, and still, if not for mistakes by everyone on the field except Aaron Rodgers, maybe would have been in that game. I mean, in the NFC Championship game, that's a successful season.
You're absolutely right, Max. But, I look at it in a sense from a quarterback standpoint. You have to look at it at your play as well as the play around you. And you're absolutely right. Yeah, their wide receivers were all beat up and banged up. Offensive linemen even took a hit in the Dallas Cowboy game and Atlanta game. I think for McCarthy at this particular point, he has to reevaluate the whole situation. You're having an older quarterback going into another season in his career. We need to continue to build around him and not ask him to do everything. So now that means on defense, that means special teams. That also means his weapons on the outside. Jordy Nelson was beat up the whole season, recovering from the ACL surgery, and then now the ribs, and then Adams and the ankle. You asking Cobb, who's missed a few games. Jared Cook has been out. So you're talking about weapons that are going in and out each and every week for a quarterback that you talk about is one of the best quarterbacks in the game, but he needs help. He's getting older. You're asking him to do too much. So this offseason is going to be very big for McCarthy and Ted Thompson, because I think the pressure is not on McCarthy. The pressure, just like you talked about, Stephen A., is more on Ted Thompson. If they can exert every type of avenue, be able to build more around their starting quarterback.
Not only are you the best player in the world, you're the self-proclaimed best player in the world. LeBron James is almost hitting the panic button because you're scared you're going to lose to Golden State. It is just not a good look for you to be sitting there, talking about what you don't have when there's still time for you to get it and defend your crown.
Hello again. Welcome back into First Take. Thank you guys so much for hanging with us. We covered a lot of ground in hour number 1, but Stephen A., what are you hot on in hour 2?
Well, I'm hot on Chicago. I mean, listen, this is one of the largest cities in the United States of America. The Bulls tradition, championships, and all of that stuff. That ain't the case now. It's pretty damn bad in Chicago. As bad as I've ever seen it with Rondo and D-Wade and Butler and Hoiberg. Good luck getting another job. I mean, this man ain't going to last too long the way things are looking right now. We got a lot to talk about in regards to that story. Hour number 2 up next, no doubt.
If you add me to the Dallas Cowboys roster, I think we're a Super Bowl team. I think the Cowboys have all the pieces needed. They have a great quarterback.
Block the ball. Prescott. Touchdown, Cowboys.
They have a great veteran tight end, Jason Witten.
Touchdown. Back to the right. No one covered Witten.
A great veteran receiver in Dez Bryant.
Wings it down. A straight Dez Bryant. Touchdown.
And all they're missing is a great running back.
The Dallas Cowboys select HvZgzc. Elliott has a hole.
Holy cow. Over the top. Touchdown. Touchdown. He dives toward the pylon.
Feed Elliott.
Coming right. 50-yard line and scrimmage. Zeke Elliott.
Jaw-dropping day for Elliott.
He's a touchdown machine, I tell you. And jumps into the Salvation Army red kettle.
He got him close. That was Ezekiel Elliott before the draft on this very program, predicting the Cowboys would be a Super Bowl team if they took him. Now, Dez Bryant took it one step further on Thursday at the Pro Bowl, telling the Dallas Morning News, quote, "I'm not being biased because I play for the Cowboys, but I think we're the only team that had a shot to beat the Falcons." Donovan is still here with us, but Stephen A. Smith, are these types of comments the problem with the Cowboys?
Exactly the problem with the Cowboys. See, this is the kind of stuff that gets on my nerves, all right? Listen, I love me some Dez Bryant. When I talk about the Cowboys and all that stuff, remember, I'm talking about the pathetic, disgusting fan base. I'm not talking about the individual players on the squad. I know they're big time. But this is the kind of stuff that rakes my nerves because the Dallas Cowboys don't take any time to wallow in their nonsense. They always trying to make themselves be bigger than what they are. They get bounced out. They lose to Green Bay. It was the catch that should have been a catch that wasn't a catch and all that stuff. We got robbed. They lose in their divisional game this year, going 13-3. Second time since 2007, same thing happened. You go 13-3. You got a wild card bye. You get your first playoff game, a divisional playoff game after winning 13 games, but you can't win a damn postseason game. You would think they would have the decency to just go away, shut the hell up, disappear, and say, you know what? We did not live up to our hype, our drama, our expectations. Let us just disappear for a little while. Oh, no, they can't do that. This is why their fan base is so damn disgusting, y'all. You know what I'm saying, D-Nab and Max. This is exactly why their fan base is the most disgusting, nauseating, delusional fan base in American history. I can't stand them. They make me sick. Cowboy fans make me want to vomit every day. Why? Because they'll lose on a Sunday and then wake up Monday. You know we're going to win the Super Bowl next year, right? Oh, we're going to win it next year, right? You don't even take a moment to sit up there like any other decent human being and say, you know, we didn't get it done. Let's shut up. Now, the Super Bowl is taking place, a week from Sunday. The Super Bowl. The Dallas Cowboys are nowhere to be found. Going yet again. Yet again they're gone. And what they talking about? This is when he picks the time to make this statement. We were the only ones that could beat them. Now you make this statement. Now you make this statement. See, that's what makes me so sick about the Cowboys. I can't stand them. That's exactly why. It's exactly why.
I mean, they're talking, and it sounds like sour grapes from Des Bryant.
Of course
they lost. As you said, they didn't win a playoff game. And in the NFC, you could argue, look, they have a ball control offense. Maybe that could negate some of what Atlanta does. I don't know. I mean, they lost to Green Bay at home. This Atlanta team showed you they were better than Green Bay. That's a really tough offense for the Dallas defense to stop. Atlanta's defense has gotten better as the year has gone on. I'd still like Atlanta against the Cowboys, even in a kind of hypothetical matchup. But why is Des even bringing that up? You don't win a single playoff game, and you pop off about how you could have, should have, would have beaten the representative in your conference that's going to the Super Bowl. It just sounds like sour grapes. It sounds like being a bad loser, and that's a bad look for this Dallas Cowboys franchise.
You know, I'm with Stephen A. It seems like every time the Dallas Cowboys get put in a position where either they make the playoffs or have a great regular season, they end up losing in the first or second round, and now we're talking about basically if they'll be a Super Bowl contending next year. Now, I understand what Des Bryant is talking about. He felt confident about their particular offense, but it's just bad timing. No need to even bring it up at this particular point because you didn't even beat the Green Bay Packers when you had home field advantage. You coming off a great season, and you were expected to be in the NFC Championship or possibly the Super Bowl, but you ended up losing. Now you make situations worse by bringing it up as the Super Bowl week is coming about. And I think for Des Bryant, the thing that you need to focus on, Des, really is where were you during the regular season? Yeah, you had a great game against the Green Bay Packers, and I had brought up earlier in the season that I thought that they should think about not only trading Tony Romo, but also Des Bryant. I'm looking at the big picture now because of the young talent that you have on the offensive end, with Dak Prescott as your quarterback, Ezekiel Elliott as your running back, with the offensive line that you have. If you're not going to be there each and every week as their starting wide receiver, and you're going to be so inconsistent, you need to figure out what you're going to do next. So stop worrying about if you're the only team that's going to beat the Atlanta Falcons, because that's over. You've already had the U-Haul trucks packed up, and you guys have probably been in Vegas, which I've seen pictures of them hanging out in Vegas before the Pro Bowl, and you guys are focusing on something other than what's happening next week. So let it go. And for the Cowboy fans, I'm with you, Stephen A. It's always something of them, oh, wait till next year. We're going to be outstanding next year. The same thing probably is going to happen next year, and we'll be revisiting this whole situation from somebody else.
And the thing that's so disgusting, understand, Max Donovan, what's so disgusting about them is that It's the timing of everything. I mean, you know, they don't take any time to wallow in any kind of, they don't take any time to say, damn, we came up short. We really didn't get it done. Let me discipline. In other words, the kind of advice we would give to an Odell Beckham Jr. or somebody else never applies to the Cowboys. Never applies. I'm trying to tell you, I read a text on my radio show. I got a lifelong buddy of mine who was my college roommate, Mark Turner. I love him like a brother, but damn it, I can't stand him because he's one of the biggest Cowboy fans I know. A dude, Pete Whitfield, went to school with me, another Cowboy fan. Allen Iverson calls me to get on me about getting on the Cowboys. I mean, Allen Iverson. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. And what is the belief? What is it that they're saying? The Dallas Cowboys lose on Sunday after a 13-3 season, which really was 14-2 because they would have beat the Eagles if the last game of the regular season matters. They lose a game. They don't win a playoff game. And the first words out of their mouth, you know we gonna get another. You know we gonna get a Super Bowl, right? We gonna get a Super Bowl within the next 2-3 years, right? This is what they're saying. I'm talking within 24 hours. That's the problem. Jerry Jones is sitting there. He's the ringleader. Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus. They went out of business. The Dallas Cowboys should have been out of business, okay? But this dude sits there and he has Cowboy fans, including his own players, like puppets on a string, sitting there bloviating that nonsense. You know, we gonna be all right. Well, watch what we gonna do. It's 21 years since the Dallas Cowboys, I'm sorry, 22 years since the Dallas Cowboys have won a Super Bowl. By the way, Max, 5 of the last 7 years, they haven't even had a record better than 500. 5 of the last 7 years, they haven't even had a better than 500 record. But somehow, some way, they gonna be all right. This is their problem.
He's not the ringleader. Last 22 years, he's the ringless leader. I mean,
how about that? Ringless. I like that. I like that, Max. I'm very proud of you. And Max, you're very good, you, Max. You are very good, you. I love that.
You're good.
I love that.
I'll tell you what, every year it is the same thing with that fan base, and Jerry Jones cashes in on that. Part of the Dallas Cowboys brand is their irrepressible and national following, where no matter what it is, listen, they have a couple of wins one season, and they're talking about they're going to get back to a Super Bowl, and they get incredibly lucky in the draft with Dak Prescott. Who says you're going to find a Dak Prescott in the 3rd or 4th round? Very, very unlikely. Incredibly lucky, and even then, you know, with all that luck, we told you, and they didn't win a playoff game.
And I also want to say when we did our remote during the national championship game, I also want to make sure for future reference, there's going to be a bunch of folks in Phoenix coming to watch us when we're there next week. I'm going to put this on blast right now. I'm sick and tired of signing autographs for Dallas Cowboy fans. I don't like these people. I just don't like them. I just get tired of it. I'm tired of them. I'm tired of them showing up. We need security to highlight who Dallas Cowboy fans are so we can leave them out because they'll show up in Houston acting like they're playing Sunday. You do understand that, Molly. They're going to show up in Houston.
We will be in Houston, but you have to admit that they're consistent, both the players and the fans.
So what? I don't want them. They're going to walk. They're going to show up in Houston, y'all, acting like they're playing instead of Atlanta. I'm telling y'all what I'm telling you. They're going to act like they're playing. They're disgusting. They're disgusting. I can't stand them. I just can't stand them.
Yeah, Donovan, you wouldn't want a receiver on your team after you lost talking about how you would have, should have, could have beaten the team that's going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, I had receivers that were doing a lot of talking and still talking at this particular point. So it don't matter to me what they talk about anyway.
You be nice, Donovan. You be nice, Donovan. You be nice, Donovan. You might have won a Super Bowl if you kept him around. You might have won a Super Bowl if you kept him around.
Hey, well, if he would have just shut up, then maybe he would have stayed around. So, you know, we got one that's quiet in the Super Bowl, and I hope that Julio Jones and Matt Ryan win it. So they'll act like they love each other as well.
You couldn't deal with a little bit of chirping so you could have a ring? You couldn't deal with that?
No. Move on.
All right, we will. Donovan, thank you so much for being with us. We will see you in Houston. Looking forward to that. And Stephen A. signing Dallas Cowboys fans.
Giving
them autographs and pictures. Oh, he will. Don't
Security
worry. He will
ban them.
Cowboys fans, Stephen A. says, line up for your autograph.
Don't say that, Mac. Don't joke around like that, Mac. Don't you joke around like that.
Wear your blue proudly and your stars. All right, guys, let's move on. First Take is going to Houston, and we are so looking forward to it. We want to see you guys come down there. We'll be there February 1st through February 3rd. We are going to be on St. Emmanuel Street, Lucky's Pub downtown. Brandon Marshall, tzwFyI, Rob Gronkowski, many more giveaways, etc. Come meet us in person and pack the house. And then tonight at 10:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN, the X Games continue for the 16th straight year from Aspen, Colorado. We'll have the men's finals from ski superpipe and snowboard big air. The X Games are also streaming live on the apps. And NBA Friday doubleheader for you. You know that's going to be good. NBA Countdown. Michelle Beadle and the crew will get you guys set at 7 Eastern. Staying with the NBA, Rajon Rondo did not like what Dwayne Wade and Jimmy Butler had to say about their Bulls teammates following the Chicago's loss to the Hawks on Wednesday, saying the following on Instagram about the difference between the veterans in the Bulls locker room and the veterans that were in the Celtics locker room when he played there. Quote, "My vets would never go to the media. They would come to the team. My vets didn't pick and choose when they wanted to bring it. They brought it every time they stepped in the gym, whether it was practice or a game. They didn't take days off. My vets didn't care about their numbers. My vets played for the team. When we lost, they wouldn't blame us. They took responsibility and got in the gym. They showed the young guys what it meant to work." He finished the post with the following on this Bulls team: "If anything is questionable, it's the leadership." Stephen A., he didn't mince words. Is Rajon Rondo right?
Well, he does have a point. He has a point because he's talking about Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen. And the fact of the matter is they never conducted themselves the way we saw Jimmy Butler and Dwayne Wade conduct themselves. Now, we can debate whether or not it's justified, because what resonates with me is that I've known Dwayne Wade since he's come into the league. I know him very well. And he has never done something like what he did in Chicago the other day. So it leads me asking the question, Max, as to whether or not or what the reason was behind Dwayne Wade stepping out of character and going on blast in the public the way that he did. That's typical Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler's the kind of dude that'll say it right to your face. He said it to me about Fred Hoiberg on the record last year. He didn't mince any words. That's Jimmy Butler. In the case of Dwayne Wade, he's a bit more diplomatic. So for him to do something like this, it was clearly out of character. And the appropriate question would be to ask what pushed him to this point, because that's not who he is. But nevertheless, to answer the question directly, Rondo is right. Because KG would have never done that. KG is a leader, man. This brother is as real and as raw as it gets. And clearly in that locker room with KG and Doc Rivers, that's simply not going to happen. Wouldn't it happen with Paul Pierce? Wouldn't it happen with Ray Allen either? Here's where it gets a bit tricky for Rondo, however. Even though there's veracity to his statements, his track record also gets attached to it. I like Rondo personally a lot. If you get to know him, he's a much better dude than he comes across. But he initially had problems in Boston because he was like, it ain't no big three. It's the big four. Don't leave me out of it. And it took him a little time to adapt to that. You know, you go to Dallas and ultimately, and you got to remember, they gave up Brandon Wright. They gave up Jay Crowder. I forgot who else they gave up. They gave up a couple of picks as well. They gave up some cats to get him in Dallas. And then you literally butted heads with Rick Carlisle to the point where you got exiled from Dallas. It wasn't smooth in Sacramento. Now you go to Chicago. And so when you look at it from that perspective, you know, your temperamental tendencies certainly play a role in things that transpired in at least 3 of the 4 places you have been at. And for Dwayne Wade to speak up without ever saying anybody's name, but for him to speak up so outspokenly, so adamantly about it, it gives you cause to pause. But again, Rondo's not wrong because he's talking about KG, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen. He is right. They didn't do things like that.
The content of what Rondo said was correct. Tough to argue with the shots he took. But does he have the standing to make those kind of comments publicly is the question. The problem with Rondo is that he entered a league that was changing as what does Rondo not do well and never did well, and it gets worse and worse, and now it's historically bad? Shoot. Guy can't shoot. And as the league became increasingly a league about making shots, he was ill-fitting and worse fitting. So he goes from a guy who's considered, if not an elite point guard, then the next thing to it. And the only reason he wouldn't be elite is because, again, the problems with the shooting, free throws, et cetera, even getting to the line nowadays. And as he moved from spot to spot, the returns were diminished, increasingly diminished. And there's still diminishing returns to the point where he's just not good. I know he had numbers in Sacramento. I did not think he was a good player. I did not think he was even an average point guard in Sacramento. And clearly he's worse than that now in Chicago. And if you read between the lines, it sounds like what What Rondo is saying, or I don't even know if he realizes he's saying it, is, hey, Butler, Wade, the rest of us aren't that good. It's not about not trying. We're just not that good. I don't know if he realizes what he's saying, but if you have a collection of good players, they wouldn't be playing like this, unless it's really bad leadership. Or it's just that, Wade is still pretty good and Butler is a very good player, but there's not enough talent on the team. It's not that we're not trying, it's that we ain't that good. So whether or not Rondo realizes it, that is not only the truth, but you can interpret what he's saying as that. The question is, does he have the right or the standing or the status in the game? I know a lot of players will still tell you he's a genius. They think of Rondo as a basketball genius, but a guy who totally can't buy a shot. Does he have the standing as one of the things that's kind of weighing you down to take shots at the two best players on the team?
Well, I will answer it this way. Let's remember, Max Kellerman, that Rondo is a champion as well. He won a ring. It's not like he doesn't know what it takes to capture a championship. He's a highly intelligent individual, which no one has questioned, and he's a champion. And so since the subject matter was about winning, it does make him qualified to have a say, because even though Dwayne Wade has more rings, Rondo has a ring too, and he played a very significant role in them capturing a ring. Well, what I'm saying is none of them should have gone publicly, but what I'm saying to you is that what has hurt Rondo is the subject matter is not just about winning, but it's about behavior. If Dwayne Wade and Jimmy Butler said dudes can't play, that would have been excessively cruel. That's not what they said. They're questioning work ethic. They're questioning commitment. And when they bring up that subject, Rondo does have credence in terms of a voice because he is a champion. And when we look at the fact of that he can't play, well, let's qualify that. He can't play in today's game because the rule changes and the way the game has evolved, it affects him. When he was playing with Boston and you had Ray Allen on one side, and you had Paul Pierce on another, and you had a KG who could step away from the basket 15, 17, 19 feet 15 to 17 feet religiously and hit jump shots. He had dudes to give the ball to who could make shots. You can't put him on a team where there are not bona fide shooters. Score is fine, but that's not good enough for a Rondo. You need
that was always the question
shooters.
with this Chicago team. Where are the shooters? Right, where are the shooters?
Exactly.
And
McDermott.
The thing about Rondo, and I'm a fan of Rondo's, at least about the way, a fan of the way he used to play the game.
Sure.
But yeah, sure. He really can't shoot, and that's always been the case. And furthermore, and I hate to bring this up, but the larger the role he has had in the team, even on those Boston teams, the worse they did. When it was the big three, and look at this young guy Rondo's on his way up, they won a championship. As Rondo took a step forward in the offense, the Celtics, partly because of Miami, of course, but the Celtics took a step back in terms of their position in the East. And from team to team he's gone since then, those teams have gotten worse when he's joined them. I
want to remind you about this. Again, you're talking Dallas, Sacramento, Chicago. But in Boston, remember what this dude did in the playoffs. The other guys, this dude was a walking triple-double. Rondo showed up, man. So once upon a time, he was big time. But as the game evolved and it came more about shooters playing point and legitimate bona fide shooters being out there, he couldn't adapt to that because he could never really shoot jump shots. That's the problem.
Last thing, Jimmy Butler went from a guy who no one cared about, wasn't on anyone's radar, to defensive stopper, to all-star. Very few guys have ever done that in the history of basketball, to a legitimate all-star and one of the best two-way two guards in the NBA. So if he questions someone's work ethic, because that's how he got there, Butler has some credence. He has some standing to do so based on his own history.
You're right. Hold on, Molly. Yep. You're right, but very, very important last point. Dwayne Wade has nothing to worry about. He's Dwayne Wade. But Jimmy Butler is an all-star looking to continue to ascend. He has to be very careful because despite his talent, what Jimmy Butler doesn't want anybody doing is saying that he's a distraction because of how he'll call out guys. That reputation could potentially follow him. I love him, but he has to be careful.
Ain't no championships on that resume so far.
Fair or not, he may suffer.
That's fair. Let's step aside from the drama and the shy, though. Gentlemen, what is going on in your city in New York coming up? Despite reportedly telling Phil Jackson that he wants to stay in NYC, the Knicks appear to be desperate to get rid of him. We'll discuss Melo's future with the team. Plus, staying in New York, Odell Beckham Jr. is undoubtedly one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, but it hasn't come without its drama. He's now saying he's learned from those mistakes, but should we believe him? Former Giant Antonio Pierce in the house to break it down.
Yo, everybody get up! Everybody get up! Everybody needs to understand that I'm more than simply a hype man for this rap group, just like Geico is more than just a company that can save you money. Geico also has fast and friendly claim service, so they can help you when you need it most. And while I do love being a hype man, I also love reading for children's audiobooks. Like Little Bo Peep, she lost the sheep, and she don't know where to find them. Yo!
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
It was a long and tumultuous season for Odell Beckham Jr., who had battles with the kicking net, multiple unsportsmanlike conduct penalties, yacht club, and punching a wall following the loss in the wild card round against the Packers, to name a few. But Beckham told ESPN that he is learning from his mistakes. You learn from it. You grow. You move on. That's life. Life. Stuff happens. You get knocked down and you get back up. That's just always been my mentality. As you get older, you grow and mature, and that should never stop. As soon as you stop growing, you're done living. I'll always be growing, forever learning, forever taking in advice from people I deeply respect. Former Giant Antonio Pierce is here with us. Thank you. It's nice to have some company. I'm a loner out here.
I was wondering where everybody's at. Then I heard like they're in L.A. So I'm like, well, look, I live in L.A.
Yeah.
So does that mean I get that same treatment? Like whenever you guys need me, I can just do this.
Oh, stop it.
I'm just saying.
I mean, you in L.A. most of the time. You got it better than us.
What's that weather like today over there? What's that weather like?
70, sunny, perfect.
You want to trade, Antonio?
I'll trade. Actually, I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, exactly. All right. You know a little more about Odell Beckham than we do. Do you expect to see a change from him next season?
I think that's going to just happen with the growth of being a now 24-year-old NFL vet. And I'll say this, when he had that talk with Jerry Reese, that conversation just didn't resonate with Jerry Reese, but all the coaching staff and the players, that they need the best Odell Beckham on and off the field, in the locker room. And take nothing for what I'm saying as a negative. The guy loves ball. He loves football. He works hard. He practices hard. But you don't need all the side distractions, right? You don't need the punching the walls. You don't need the little drama on the sideline. And that comes with just the passion of the game. And I appreciate that, especially from an offensive player, him displaying that kind of passion. But when it turns into a negative, now you need to alter how you're doing your things. There's nothing about me right now that says that he will not change with the growth of being an older player, now having a full off season. And you're going to rewind. I think as a football player, we all sit back and say, what happened during the season to me? And I think he's going to notice that, there were some good times and there were some bad times. And the bad times we talked about a little bit more. So I think with Odell, I do think that conversation with Jerry Reese was very critical for his growth as a New York Giant. Because at the end of the day, they need him to win ball games. They need a very positive Odell. Because when he's rocking and rolling mentally, physically, and emotionally, the Giants are at their high.
Go ahead, Max.
Well, look, stay with me here for a second, okay? I think everyone can relate to this idea, or many people can. You think about the kid as a kid in school, or the kid in school, or at the job, or wherever it is, that doing well matters to them. When they mess up, it affects them. The kid who doesn't do his homework, but who cares about how he does, that's a really bad feeling for that kid. That affects them. The person who wants to do well at the job and screws up, and they care about the job, they want to succeed, they want to get ahead, they want to be on a winning team, when they mess up, it means something to them. And I think that's the kind of guy Odell is, and so he will try to internalize some of the lessons he's learned through experience and to be better and to do better. It seems to me, from everything I'm hearing, and just from some interaction with him, that that's the kind of person he is. The question is, from a football point of view, because, look, I don't expect him to be perfect going forward. He will continue to make mistakes. He's human, and he's an emotional guy. You can see that. So can he, on the margins, affect his behavior and rein it in a little bit and be on the right side of that line? I think that's possible. But the question is, from a football point of view, what is more useful? Ryan Clark brings up the fact on this show and has brought up the fact that Antonio Brown just doesn't care. He's a me guy, right? According to guys in Pittsburgh. So it's kind of a sociopath that way in a sense on the football field. Like whatever else is going on, he messed up, he made it difficult for someone else. He doesn't care. He's going to go out and ball. Maybe Odell is the kind of guy, because it means something to him, when he messes up, it actually affects him. When he thinks he didn't do it the right way and he needs to get better from this, maybe that has something to do with him dropping a pass. Maybe putting pressure on himself that way. So the question is, as a football fan, do you want Odell to be the kind of guy who cares and works on it? Or might it be better if he's just like a psycho who just blocks all that stuff out, whatever, not trying to please anyone else? From a human point of view, you have to like the fact that he cares and he wants to work on it, and I think he will improve. Not be perfect, but I think he'll improve.
Well, he'll improve, but I think that, both of you got to pay attention to something that I don't know if you've really thought about. And you've had no reason to think about it because a guy like Eli Manning hasn't missed a game in 12 years. He's played every single game, all 16 games for the last 12 seasons. It's unbelievable. But at the same time, whether it's a question about his health, future moving forward, or his overall production, there have been questions as to whether or not or when the Giants are going to move beyond Eli Manning. Why do I bring that up? Because if you're Odell Beckham Jr., that's going to directly affect you. I love Odell Beckham Jr. I think he's a big-time player. I've gotten to know him a little bit. I think he's a great guy. He's just immature at times because he's so emotionally invested, not just in the team's success, but his overall individual success. The reason I think we have to pay attention to me bringing up Eli Manning is because whether it's Eli Manning himself, whether it's Reese getting them a running game because they were ranked 29th with their rushing attack with Jennings and Perkins, the fact is that there's going to be some adjustments. There are going to be things that are going to happen in order for this team to improve. Keep in mind that they walked into this postseason. Outside of this postseason, the last 6 out of 7 years, they have missed the playoffs. And so when we look at it from that kind of perspective, we got to sit up there and say, okay, there may be some rough spots moving forward in terms of what they're going to do. The Eagles are going to get better. The Redskins, we presume, may get better. The Dallas Cowboys are not going anywhere. Where may that end up leaving the Giants? Even though they spent a boatload of money on the defensive side of the ball, they ain't young spring chickens back there. They got some veterans. They also got guys like Eli Apple and others. I'm just simply saying that if you are Odell Beckham Jr., there are going to be some rough patches. And as a result, how are you going to handle that? Because it's not like the situation that he's going to walk into in the future is going to be the same thing he's been dealing with for the last season or the last 2 years. It's going to change. How is he going to deal with change is a legitimate question.
Yeah, to me, it's the success of the New York Giants is always going to be based for the next few years until they change with that running game is on Odell Beckham. So the matter of fact is he has to change one way or the other. And to me, I do think he cares. And I think he hears and sees and reads everything that's being said about him. And that's why he's responding this way, right? This ain't a guy who's not educated. He's a smart individual. He understands his marketing opportunities. He understands what he can do on and off the field by his character. And I think he does truly care. And you can just watch him near down in the Pro Bowl, man. The guy loves ball. And mostly everybody in that locker room loves Odell. But if it keeps being tiring, it'll be the same kind of rumblings that we're hearing with Antonio Brown in Pittsburgh. You'll hear that in New York if it keeps going this way.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't. So much potential.
Yeah.
You want to
Yeah.
see him reach his ultimate potential. Antonio, thank you so much for coming all the way
tell
from
me
West
about
Coast to East Coast to
Guys,
be here.
I'm jealous.
We appreciate you. You'll be back there. You'll
So-
be back there shortly.
Tom Brady's just about done. He is going to fall off a cliff. Tom Brady is going to be a bum in short order. Now,
hold on. Yeah. Did you just say that Tom Brady is just about done?
Yeah.
And he's going to be a bum in short order? Is that what you just said?
Correct.
The floor is yours.
Cartoons, Stephen A. and Max never get old for me. Super Bowl 51. We're going to be in Houston. We hope to see you guys down there Wednesday, February 1st through Friday, February 3rd. We're going to be at Lucky's Pub downtown on St. Emmanuel Street. A ton of guests, a ton of free giveaways. We start at 9 a.m. local, so we hope to see you there. Will he stay or will he go? It seems like Carmelo Anthony will be traded, but will it be to the Clippers? So the New York Daily News is reporting that they've let the Clippers know they are open to trading Melo to the Clippers without getting back Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, or DeAndre Jordan. Stephen A., what is going on here?
Well, Phil's trying to give him away for a box of cookies. He's being very, very disrespectful for one of the prolific scorers that we've seen in the modern day era in the National Basketball Association. It's an absolute travesty because really what it comes down to, again, it's disrespect. I'm sitting here saying this. Think about this, Max Kellerman. This is Carmelo Anthony. Even though you've been on the record saying that Carmelo Anthony should be moved, never once, Max Kellerman, did you say he should be moved for close to nothing. You never said that. You said move him, but damn, show him some respect. Act like he's got some value. So you're the New York Knicks, and you're willing to give away Carmelo Anthony for somebody that's not named Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, or DeAndre Jordan? The nerve, the gall, it's unbelievable to me. And what this speaks to is how Carmelo Anthony and Phil Jackson and their relationship has regressed. It speaks to the fact that there's no desire for Phil Jackson to be around this man. And I'm happy about that because the only way Phil would get to that point is if Carmelo Anthony finally looked him in the face and told him how he really feels about him, okay? Because I know that he don't like the man. So I'm happy about that. But I just believe as a Knicks fan, if you got Carmelo Anthony, how the hell are you going to give him away for a box of cookies? I don't understand that part. I don't get that at all.
I understand
and it just shows. Please explain. I need help, Max. Go ahead. The floor is yours. I need help.
One, Phil Jackson's bad at trading players, number one.
Okay.
He does not get value for what he trades. In fact, the Tyson Chandler deal, any asset he has, even marginal asset, Iman Shumpert, is usually used to leverage himself out of a bad contract. Now, he inherited some of those bad contracts, not his fault, but he doesn't really get anything back for it of value. He just kind of clears the decks. And so here, he runs into a reluctant marketplace on Carmelo Anthony, and he's like, well, let me just get rid of him for nothing. Phil Jackson, so far, has been a bad, essentially, GM. That's one. Two, no reason to get outraged about the fact that the Knicks, apparently, even if they had a good GM, can't get a star for Carmelo. What that tells you, Stephen A., is the marketplace is trying to tell you what I have been trying to tell you about Carmelo Anthony. He ain't worth that much. He's a nice he's a great scorer, a great ISO scorer, but he is not a superstar in terms of the results he's achieved on the court, in terms of wins and losses. He has not had a lot of talent around him. In his best season, without a ton around him, he has won 50 games. In his prime, he was a great player, and now he's a very good one because he still has remarkable scoring ability. He doesn't play defense. He doesn't move the ball and all those kind of things. And what the marketplace is telling you right now, this isn't just Phil Jackson, his ineptitude, or me telling you, or some columnist opining. This is the NBA marketplace saying, no, you can't have Kevin Love for Carmelo. You can't have DeAndre Jordan even for Carmelo, let alone Blake Griffin or Chris Paul. The marketplace is dictating this. He's just not worth that much. Now, is he not a good player? No, he's still a very good player. But he has a max deal. It's not like it's up at the end of this season, and he's diminishing physically in a league with guys like the Greek Freak and Karl Anthony Towns, young, athletic, improving players, many of whom, maybe most of whom, are not making the max. So you have a player who I believe has always been overrated, though great at his best, diminishing, getting paid the most you can possibly pay him in a league that's changing, doesn't move the ball, doesn't play defense. You ain't getting a superstar for him because I hate to tell you, he's not a superstar. That's what I've been trying to tell you.
Mac, you've gone on long enough. Let me ask you a question. Who's the superstar when we talk about Blake Griffin and Kevin Love? Who? Which one of those?
I don't think Kevin Love's a superstar either. Blake Griffin is. Blake Griffin is.
A superstar?
Then he's a bubble superstar.
Blake
Griffin is an incredibly excellent player.
Max, you're lying. You're lying to the American people because you know in LA, being out here in LA, you know good and well. There have been plenty of times. That crew cut that you just cut off and looks all nice, got you looking about 10 years younger. Max Kellerman, how many times did you use that from scratching your head, looking like you had dandruff because Blake Griffin was driving you crazy? Come on, Max. Don't you lie right now.
Blake Griffin's problem I've watched Blake Griffin very closely from the very beginning. He was an incredible rookie. And by the way, since former President Obama told Chris Paul, tell Blake Griffin to work on his 15-footer, Blake Griffin has, and he had such a beautiful all-around game that last year I wondered, can he still explode when he needs to? And then in the playoffs, he showed you, yeah, I still can. I'm just working on my overall game. The problem with Blake Griffin is he may be a little soft because he won't stay in the post. I agree with that criticism of Blake Griffin. And if you want to say he's not a superstar, he is the very next thing to it. Carmelo isn't. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Whatever Blake is, Carmelo is less than that. And by the way, the marketplace is telling you the same thing is true of Kevin Love, whether you agree with it or not. The marketplace is telling you that.
I'm going to challenge the marketplace and their knowledge about the game of basketball if you're going to sit there and tell me that Carmelo Anthony wouldn't be better with CP3. See, this is the key here. This is basketball. And what we're talking about is not just the individual talent, but how it's complemented by the personnel. You're CP3. Who can you do more with? A 6'10" forward who only wants to go inside when it's on a fast break and he's dunking the basketball. Other than that, he wants to shoot jump shots, but he can't shoot as well as Melo. He don't have the handle that Melo has. He can't create his own shot the way Melo can, and he can't feed off.
And he's going to leave, and you're not going to get anything for him anyway.
You trying to tell me that? Really?
No, matter of fact, listen, Doc, please listen to Stephen A. Trade Blake to the Knicks for Carmelo. That would be awesome. Ain't going to happen. Carmelo don't have that trade value.
It would work for both teams.
Would love to hear more.
Because the Knicks don't have CP3.
We got to save it for another day. We got to get to break. You can see these sisters face off in the championship match of the Australian Open on Saturday at 3 a.m. Eastern on ESPN with a special encore presentation of the match Sunday at 9 a.m. on ESPN2 and also can be seen streaming live on the ESPN app and watch ESPN.
You are so disrespectful.
He is going to fall off a cliff.
Shut the hell up.
That's not even close to my best.
They're wrong. And I don't give a damn that they agree with me or not.
February 14th, Valentine's Day, is just around the corner. So where's the love for the greatest sports story of this generation? I'm not going to give you any stats. I just want you to remember the number 14. I'll come back to it. Let's go back to the 90s. What if I told you there was a father who fell in love with a game after seeing it on television, and he would teach himself to play from a book, no expensive trainers, fancy lessons memberships, just a $5 paperback. This father's name was Richard. What if I told you Richard was living in Compton, California, and with that book, he would coach his daughters to become the greatest ever in the most bougie country club sport there is. Wait, there's more. Richard is black, and tennis couldn't be any more white. Would you believe me if I told you his daughters would become the most famous stars in their sport, not just in the United States, but worldwide? A sport that initially treated them as outcasts. They would carry the torch for decades, far surpassing the normal age of dominance, becoming tennis's biggest draw, male or female. Off the court, they would become cultural icons and symbols of strength. No, this story is not fiction, and it's not a fairy tale, far from it. One would battle a life-threatening injury, the other a debilitating autoimmune disorder. Sexism, racism, body shaming, and equal pay due to their gender. And yet, they'd stay true to themselves, never forgetting where they came from. It might have been them versus the world initially, but they wouldn't let the world turn them hard and insulated. They'd live life freely and to the fullest. Those two little girls were Venus and Serena Williams, and they've changed the game literally and figuratively. Now, at ages 35 and 36, they'll face each other in the Australian Open finals this Saturday, 14 years after they first met there in a final, unheard of in any sport. Their improbable story continues. It's time we start showing them a little more love. If you want to see more of our Final Take segments, just head over to our Facebook and Twitter pages, leave your comments, and join the conversation there. I cannot wait for that match this Saturday. It is absolutely incredible that Venus got back there as well. And don't forget, we're really looking forward to next week. We're going to be on the road at Super Bowl 51. We'll be in Houston next Wednesday through Friday, February 1st through 3rd. We're at Lucky's Pub downtown on St. Emmanuel Street. We're going to have a ton of special guests down there. Rob Gronkowski, Brandon Marshall, tzwFyI. You know who else is going to be there? Stephen A. and Max Kellerman. Come meet them in person, and please wear your Cowboys gear for Stephen A. See you guys Monday. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. Catch First Take weekdays, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific on ESPN. Have a great weekend, and we will see you Monday.
It's an ACC showdown on Big Monday. Duke travels to South Bend to face Notre Dame. Coverage begins Monday at 6:30 Eastern on ESPN and on ESPN Radio.
Are you kidding?
Presented by O'Reilly Auto Parts.